So I want to get right into Vlogtober. I'm going to start with my very first topic. If you're not familiar with Vlogtober, it's just vlogging every single day in October. So let's get right into the first topic. I got a bunch of really good topics from my friend Sam. Thank you, girl. Thank you, girl. First topic is budgeting for bills and everyday life expenses. So I recently chaperoned a field trip that had to do with teaching middle school students about savings and mortgages and investing and all kinds of things just that we deal with or that we don't even have any real grasp on. So it was really interesting to see that so many of the kids were like, I'm going to put $30 in my food budget, but their scenario is that they had a husband and 2 kids. So, we weren't allowed to help. We had to let them do that on their own, but it's like, wow. I think not just middle schoolers, obviously, but a lot of people don't really understand how much money you should be budgeting. Because if you're like me, you might grocery shop, but also go out to eat sometimes. So you don't pay attention. You might think, oh, I spent $200 at the grocery store, but you also spent $100 on eating out that week. So I'm married, so everything that I do is literally doubled. Every time I go out to eat, I have to double that. Groceries, double that. Laundry, double that. Automatically off the top, have to double everything. So when it comes to making those decisions, I'm a little bit less quick on the draw because I understand that it's not $5 here, $10 there. It's $10 here, $20 there, and that $10 or $20 adds up. Budgeting is essentially everything you've ever heard about it. It's setting aside a certain amount of money for something. So during the field trip, they had different areas. So they didn't get to shop. So after they budgeted, they got to shop, but they didn't know how much these things were gonna cost before they set their budgets. So what ended up happening was a lot of the kids were freaking out because they were setting aside $60 food budgets. They were putting $350 in donations, but then giving themselves a $100 mortgage budget. It was just like, it was insane because they really didn't understand how much things cost. And especially if you're at a place, and this is for a lot of us, don't feel bad if you're still in this place because a lot of us really are just starting to get our stuff together, even at my age. When you don't pay most of the bills, or if you're not in a scenario where you live with your parents and you do help with the bills and they're footing most of it, you don't understand that food adds up. When you use electricity, that adds up. You're gonna have to actually find out what these things cost. So in our old house, I used to live with my parents, but we all split the bills equally amongst everyone in the house. So me and my brother, my mom, my dad, and my now husband, before we were married, we all lived in that house and we split everything 5 ways. I asked, because now I'm responsible, I would ask to see how much, electricity costs us every month and how much food is costing us. And, because I wanted to understand how much was this going to cost us for us to split things 5 ways. And it is a lot of money, especially when you live in a house with 5 people, it is killer. The electric bill was, and I wish I was joking, $400+ a month. You really don't realize how much money you spend on the basic everyday necessities, okay? So really understanding how much things cost is so important, okay? When you get into doing your own thing, you're gonna have to start looking at things that you never paid attention to, okay? All those credit card offers you got in the mail and you just signed off and gave them all your information and you got a card back. Yeah, they gave you money. They sure did. At a 24% interest rate. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that. Oh, that's so weird. Why am I always paying my balance and it's always higher than it was last month? Well, because your interest is extremely high and you're paying the bare minimum, and guess what's gonna happen? Your whole payment is gonna go right back into interest and fees. So that's just something that people don't pay attention to because a lot of people just get a bill and they just pay it and they don't realize, hey, there's more to everything that I see than just what I see. Really look into how much your bills cost. Create a budget based on what you realistically will do. What a lot of people will do when they hear budget is, okay, I have to restrict myself in some sort of way. What often happens is, realistically, I tell myself $100 a week in food because I do not cook every night. I do keep the food in the fridge stocked, but with different schedules. And sometimes we're just like, oh, I really don't want, what we bought. It happens a lot. Y'all know. You might think, okay, cool. Oh, my budget's $100 a week on food. I already spent that food budget, but you didn't count in the fast food you got 1 or 2 times that week, So don't say, oh, well, I have to budget, so I'm going to drop my amount to $40 a week. That's not what budgeting is. Budgeting isn't living so below your bare minimum that you're starving yourself or that you're struggling or anything like that, okay? If you're living above your means or beyond your means, and you need to cut back in some places, absolutely do so. You're gonna have to start with the extra expenses like going to the movies, any subscriptions that you might have to services like Spotify, Apple Music, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon. Well, Amazon is a 1-year thing, but you know what I'm saying. Cut those expenses first and then come back on other places, because people freak out when they hear budget and just start giving themselves these super unrealistic budgets to stick to. You don't have to cut down on how much you're spending on something if you're able to afford and save and put away. It just means literally stay within that budget. So if your food budget for the week is 100, you don't have to say, oh, it's 50 now. Just say it's 100, including fast food. That way you're not overspending on your food budget, and you can still live the way you were. Instead of you having to eat less food or starving yourself, now you can say, okay, instead of eating out, I don't really have the budget for it. We spent most of our money on groceries. We're just gonna have to suck it up and cook, or eat a peanut butter sandwich and call it a night. That's all that means. People get this weird mindset where they're like, I have to struggle to create a budget. You really don't, okay? Budget, stay in your budget. Whatever you create, make it realistic. I spend about, $50 a week in gas, so my gas budget is $200. If I'm below my gas budget, great. Doesn't mean go and spend it somewhere else. Save it, put it away, okay? That's really what budgeting is. It's really plain and simple, cut and dry. It's not anything fancy. People that successfully budget really just stick to their budget. And if they realize that down the road, it's like, hey, I don't drive as much as I used to, or I'm not spending my entire budget on food, you can then lower your budget and go, okay, realistically, if I don't eat out, I can spend $80 a week on food. Or if I want to eat out, I'm going to have to buy less groceries that I'm just going to end up throwing away, because produce, I swear, just rots the day after you buy it. Make a budget by first seeing how much you realistically spend. And you can do that simply by going about your normal business, okay? Don't change anything for a week. Don't think about the budget. Save all of your receipts or write down how much you're spending, and then tally that and go, damn, I said my food budget would be 100, but I spent $300 in food this week. Sounds crazy. Food's expensive, okay? But you might be like, hey, I spent $300 on food this week. Okay, so where can I make these changes? And then from there, create a budget that is realistic, stick to it. If that budget ends up being too much, buy a lot, not buy a little bit. It's not like, oh, I'm under budget $3 a week, I'm gonna drop it by 10. Realistically, if you're like, hey, I'm gonna make my budget $100 and you end up spending 70, drop it to 80. You really just have to make it make sense for you. In the comments below, tell me something that you're saving for, something that is like your dream savings goal, okay? Because I wanna help you work towards that. And we'll definitely be talking more about credit and money a little bit later in the series. But if you like this video, you know what to do. Give that like button a tap on the tush. And if you haven't done so already, I don't know why you haven't, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below to become part of that worldwide fam. And I will see you guys somewhere out there in the world or in my next video.
It's time to jump,